listener sent a great question last week. He wanted to know what is the difference between should have and supposed to, and when should we use each one. For example, is it correct to say, I was supposed to work Friday, or I should have worked on Friday? Which phrase would you use in this situation? Do you think the meaning is the same or different? How can you decide when to use each one? The show will be a little long today, because it is a tough question. Often, these two phrases are used in the same types of situation, but they really do have different meanings, or at least the new one is often different. Let's look at that difference first. Supposed to implies that somebody else or something else decided the situation outcome, not the subject of the sentence. But the subject of sentence has an obligation to do it. Let's think about the present tense. If we consider the sentence, I'm supposed to work on Friday, the meaning is that another person has decided my schedule and I have an obligation to work. But if I say I should work on Friday, there's no obligation and no one else seems to be deciding anything for me. It seems to be my choice. Nuance. Naturally, the same nuance exists in the past tense of these two forms. I was supposed to work Friday sounds like the schedule was made by someone else who expected you to work on Friday. There's another nuance in this sentence. It is not clearly stated, but often when we use was supposed to, the nuance is that we did not do what was expected. In another words, I was supposed to work on Friday, but I didn't. The nuance is that the subject did not achieve the obligation, but I should have worked on Friday. Change feeling. In that sentence, it sounds like you believe it were better for yourself. Working Friday would have benefited. Remember that should and should have considered conditional forms. So this sentence also means you did not work on Friday. Just like the previous sentence, the new one here is I should have worked Friday, but I didn't. As a result, I did not benefit myself. That's fine when the subject is a human being, but what if the subject is not a human? Let's think about a simple example. When talking about the weather, we often say, it was supposed to rain today. The meaning here is that someone else, the weather forecaster, had predicted the weather. He or she said it will rain today, but in fact, the prediction was incorrect, because the new one here is that it is not raining. But if I say, it should have rained today, we have a serious problem. This sentence really had no meaning at all, because the subject would have to consider itself as benefited. Of course, the weather can feel any feeling one way or another, and even if it did, we wouldn't know. So this sentence sounds strange. We can't use it instead of I was supposed to rain. Well, finally, let's consider an example where two phrases have nearly the same meanings. If I represent a non-human item, I say I bring a new projector into the office and I want to show my coworkers. I power it up, but nothing happens. I can say it was supposed to turn on because the maker of the system itself has created the obligation for the projector. When I push the power button, it turns on. I can also say it should have it turned on. Because as a representative of this machine, I can also present it from a first-person point of view. I understand the machine and I know what benefit is. So, as a representative of an inanimate object, I can say it should have. This is a tough question. I hope all the listeners find it useful. Try to identify when and how to use these two very similar phrases, and be careful of the nuance.